Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pushing Film here. Today we're going to talk about a black and white film that we've recently been shooting lately. It's the JCH Streetpan 400.
That's right. So JCH Streetpan is a panchromatic film that was recently, or not too recently, brought back into production by Japan camera hunters Bellamy Hunt. It was originally an old surveillance emulsion.
Yeah. So a lot of people actually mention or question whether or not this film is re-spooled existing film. But as far as we know, this is actually a fresh film that was rescued by Bellamy Hunt, and we don't have any affiliated connection with JCH, but we just want to talk about this film because we really think it's a nice film.
Yeah. So the main characteristics of the film, most people notice, is it's quite a high contrast film. It's a medium to high speed, yet has a fine grain. So it works really well in mixed lighting conditions and in harsh lighting conditions, which is what makes it suitable for street photography. Therefore, the name Streetpan 400.
Yeah.
So Nick and I each shot a roll, and we're going to run you through some of our results and talk about our findings with the film.
So yeah, I find that if you expose for the midtones, you'll have inky blacks or block shadows, and you have nice highlight preservance. But what I did was I actually exposed for the shadows, and I found that it has good dynamic range, and the highlights hold up quite well. So I definitely recommend exposing for the shadows for this film.
Definitely. So it makes it a good film for general photography, not just street.
Yeah.
We have some contact sheets here that we actually made in the darkroom, and these the film was developed in Kodak D76. One of the first things I noticed about development is the film base itself is quite thin, and it's like a thin polyester base. It's very clear, and the good thing is it dried really flat. So that was a bonus of that. And when I shot the film, I tried to shoot in really mixed conditions, in daylight or late light. I even used a yellow filter on some of my shots, and just to see how the film would hold up. And how did you shoot yours?
So I shot mine at 200 speed just because Hashem shot his as 400, and I just wanted to know how the highlights will come out when I overexpose it a little bit. But it turns out we developed it exactly the same way, the same developer, all the parameters and recipe are the same, and I find that my highlights actually turned out quite well. And if anything, they were a little bit too bright, but I can actually, the detail is still in there, I can save it in post. So like what Hashem mentioned before, the film dries extremely flat. So what that helps is when I put in my flatbed scanner and my plastic scanner, I didn't really need to do anything, and I just laid the film flat, and the results all came out really, really nice. Yeah,
and it worked quite well in the darkroom as well. So as you can see, I've got some darkroom prints here on resin coated paper. But let's look at some of the digital scans. I'll show you guys a slideshow of those shots, and hopefully you enjoy them. Cool. So one of my favorite shots was this one, just taken on Burke Street in Melbourne, shot straight into the sky and exposed sort of towards the sky, but you can see the really nice graduation of the tones from the shadows into the highlights. And as mentioned, you see those blacks go, really deep, inky black. So, it's quite an interesting, S-curve, I think, that it would exhibit. And this was another one of my favorite shots here, just that really high contrast. So if you do shoot into exposing for the highlights, your blacks will go completely black. So it has that really high contrast pushed film look without having to do anything, which is something you can even see on the contact sheet there. So shooting straight into the light in a lot of these shots. This one here, you can see it better in the scan, but the sun was setting right behind these buildings, and you can actually see the building and the detail and the highlights there, yet into the shadows, but it does lose the shadow detail into complete black, depending how you expose it. So even in this dark room print, you can see actually it does hold more in the shadows. So it's got a huge dynamic range. Really good film for every day, and especially for street shooting, and it's really versatile.
So one of my favorite shots was actually the ones that when I finished work and I had to play with my colleague. So it was a very nice lighting condition. I just couldn't pass it up.
Yeah.
And there was like strong ray of lights coming in from grids. So I shot basically what I exposed for the shadows still, kind of compensated a little bit. But what I find is the highlights on the scans do look very bright, but I actually pulled it back and posted a little bit. And you'll find that whatever that the light doesn't cast on, those block shadows just completely turn inky black.
Yeah.
Which is something that I like a lot. Like I haven't been shooting black and white film a lot, but it does remind me of the Triax 1600 kind of look to it.
But without the green,
without the gritty
it's
grain.
almost like invisible. For a 400 speed, the green is really good.
Yeah.
And it's like the look people try and get in editing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think I really liked one of these other shots here that you had at the NGV.
Yeah, this is that shot at NGV.
Yeah, really nice into the late light. And some of the ones here with the leaves, you can see the good dynamic range there as well. Another great thing is if you do want to get the dynamic range out of the shot, I'm guessing you expose this one for the shadows.
I exposed for the shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see like really good shadow detail, and even in some of these other shots, that you saw previously. And I even did a portrait under studio lighting of a colleague here, and it holds up really well. It's not just a film for street photography, and it shows all the same characteristics where the very, very deep shadows do go black, but you get really good detail and fine grain with shots like that.
And noticeably like very sharp film as well.
Yeah. All right, so we hope you enjoyed those shots, and if you've been looking for a new black and white film to try, I would highly recommend JCH Streetpan 400. It's really unique. It's not like anything I've shot before, and I think it's one of my favorite films that I've shot in terms of black and white films. And you don't know how long it's going to be around. So
if you like that kind of push film look, but don't like the grittiness and grain of the film, I would recommend the JCH Streetpan 400 because the results are very nice and clean, very, very sharp, and they holds the highlights details quite well. And what's good about it is also I find that most of my shots I can open my aperture to f4, f5.6, or even a larger aperture. And you don't really get to do that when you're shooting at 1600 unless it's extremely dark. So it could be a nice film for not only street shots but also for portraits as well.
Definitely, as you can see there, it actually reminds me a little bit of Pan F. 50
it does.
When I shot that, you can use a wide aperture. I did find that the film doesn't handle underexposure very well, so we don't recommend pushing it. Push processing it, you wouldn't get much detail.
We recommend shooting around 200 to 320 speed film, and also please do check this film out because, like what Hashem said, it's not going to be around very long, maybe, but as long as we shoot it, we can continue on producing it, and then maybe Bellamy can manufacture more, and maybe hopefully the cost price will go down.
Definitely, yeah. It's a great thing that there is a film like JCH coming onto the market when others are getting discontinued. So hopefully if people continue to support it, he will continue to manufacture them, and the price will get more competitive.
Exactly. So I hope you enjoyed today's film review. If you like black and white or color films, or any other films that you recommend that we should review, please do send us a message, an email, or leave the comments below. Also, Bellamy, also JCH, he has a website as well that introduces what's inside everyone's camera bag, which is always exciting. And also he does talk about or introduces other people's blogs, and then it will go into depth in talking about film even further. So we'll put that underneath the show notes as well. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you.